Well, here we are in the Charlotte's Pass Valley, I guess it would be. We're sitting in amongst a boulder field, which is a periglacial landform. Over millennia, rocks from the top of the ridgeline have moved their way downhill through a series of gravity and ice freeze-thaw events to form these really amazing rivers of boulders down the valley. It's a habitat for one of our endangered and most iconic species, the mountain pygmy possum. Everyone's seen the image of the tiny possum in the hand or curled up under the rock, and this is where they live. It's quite deep under here, sort of down to 3, 4, even up to 5 meters deep below us, of numerous gaps and sort of niches for the pygmy possum to live in. Pygmy possums themselves are really sensitive to temperature, so if the temperatures are above about 26 degrees for about 4 or 5 days in a row, then that will severely impact their survival rate. Basically, they'll cark it if it gets too hot for a sustained period. So down deep in the crevices of these boulder fields is where they find permanent water flowing in sort of almost subterranean streams, but there's sort of permanent water flowing down underneath us, and they find cool environments to hang out all summer long. Over here we can see a part of their diet, the mountain plum pine, or Podocarpus lorenzi. It's a dioecious conifer, the only conifer found above the tree line in Australia. The males have little cones, like pine cones, and the females have spore cups, which capture the spores from the males, and then once that has fertilized, they produce a small peduncle or a berry, which that is the, it's higher in protein than even the bogong moth, so it's a really protein-packed berry, which they can actually store away for their winter periods of torpor, where they'll sleep for up to 3 weeks at a time, wake up, munch on a few of these stored podocarp berries, and then go back to sleep for up to 3 weeks. That's an adult female, can sleep for about that long. The juveniles maybe only 7 days before they need to get up to eat. So the berries are really important in the diet. Also, the other key diet factor in mountain pygmy possum is of course the bogong moth. Again, 70% protein. That's a really high protein, high energy little pocket. And so as the bogong moths fly into the Alps in winter from all up and down the range on the Western Ranges, they fly here to escape the heat, and they also go down into these cracks and crevices where the little pygmy possums lay in wait and feast upon them, tripling their body weight over summer. And that's a really important factor in mountain pygmy possum life cycle, is fattening up over summer. Reduction in bogong moths numbers has been recorded over the last, well, probably 10 years, but definitely in the last couple of years we've had a marked reduction in bogong moth numbers. So, they certainly eat other invertebrates, they'll eat other insects as well, but none of them are the staple that bogong moth, combined with the Podocarpus, present for the possums. Quite an interesting little critter. The females would generally take the best habitat, and that is these areas here. You can see up just behind us here, that is a massive area of podocarp. That is, all of those plants there is basically mountain plum pine. So this is a really high productive area for the mountain pygmy possums. The males, on the other hand, they get second rate. So looking over across here at this other smaller boulder field and the surrounding snow gums on the other side of Charlotte's Pass, that's where the males live. And initially it was thought that the male possums would just scarper across the bog area between us and come to visit the females in spring. That's not the case. We've, after tracking possums, we discovered they actually take the long road around. So they'll go right around the edge of the snow gum forest and then through the heath on that other side into that snow gum forest and then into these boulder fields over here. So if you're this big, that's a really long journey to take. And between there and here is a whole lot of predation waiting to happen. So foxes, cats, birds of prey, all those things are always sort of, and cars, human development, all of those things can be huge barriers to tiny possums. Do you want specifics?
Just noting this pommer here and how these make excellent ski runs.
Okay, so going back to human barriers to possum survival. As Robert mentioned, this is a ski run in winter. So in winter we're looking at we need a minimum of a metre and a half snow cover over here to make it a safe skiable run. You can see there are towers installed right in the boulder field itself, and then all the way up the ridgeline, or all the way up to the ridgeline beyond us. The human impact is quite substantial, because as you've got people riding the pommer or the T-bar up the hill, that's compaction of snow in itself. We've got groomers that would then have to also groom the ski run or groom the T-bar line, and generally also groom a ski run. That's a very large, heavy machine, flattening and further compacting that snow. And so the snow is really important to the survival of the possum. It moderates the temperatures. So on a diurnal cycle, in autumn, before we get much snowfall, daytime temperatures can reach, say, 15 degrees, and nighttime temperatures can reach -10. So you've got this 25-degree diurnal temperature range, but as soon as the snow falls, we get a blanket basically insulating these boulder fields underneath. So the possums live in this beautiful temperature range between +2 and -2 degrees Celsius all winter. So very, very handy for them. They don't get exposed to these really cold temps. Compaction of snow, though, is a really big hindrance to the possum. It pushes the snow further down into their habitat, but it also makes it melt off quicker in the spring, so it doesn't stay around as long, which is bad news for the possum. And sorry, I stumbled there. Yeah, so I think just snow compaction is, the key threat to the possums up here. I think threadbow have a threshold in which they're not allowed to open the lift if there hasn't been a certain amount of snowfall to protect the possum. At Perisher, there's another possum habitat there, and they've actually permanently roped it off. So you're never allowed to go and ski or snowboard directly over the possum habitat. The female possum habitat, the male possum habitat is across the ski run, and mostly we hope they hang out in the trees more. So, there's a couple of different, Charlotte's has just they can't open the ski run until there's enough snow, but Perisher actually roped it off. You're never allowed to ski there.
And was it at Blue Cow they actually tried to move the boulders to allow the pylon to go up?
They didn't move the boulders. They connected the male and the female habitats through tunnels of love. So they built fauna crossings straight across the ski runs, and they've been quite successful. The fauna crossings are monitored every year, and we always see possums crossing over using the tunnels of love. And yeah, our populations over at Blue Cow are fairly stable now, so that's really good news for them. Climate change.
A pressing possum question. We should move on to try and arrive at Perisher on time. Any pressing possum questions?
Why do they live separately, the males and the females?
The eternal question.
I guess the girls just get sick of being harassed. I don't know. No, I'm not sure. I mean, maybe it's to give the juveniles more chance of survival through, into autumn and into winter. So the males then just have to give them more space, perhaps. I think the first year juvenile males would generally stay in the boulder fields, but then by the second year they have to turfed out. So.
We should do a Planet Earth segment on this with little cameras and a little story.
Yeah, we asked in the room. She's like David Attenborough for possums. But you can always volunteer to come do the trapping. We trap in November generally up here in Charlotte's and Blue Cow. So if you're interested in getting to know the possums more intimately, just put your name down and come down for a weekend. It's pretty fun.